my name is Margaret, and this is my wonderful knitting YouTube channel. This is a channel that is mostly about knitting, but sometimes we include sewing, crochet, gardening, and anything else that might be going on in my life. I'd like to thank those of you who are continuing to watch and have been so kind to watch the little short stories that I have been publishing lately and giving me encouragement for that. And a big welcome to anybody who is new here. I am on Ravelry at mywonderknitlife. I will include that information down below in the show notes. And anything else that I talk about, podcasters, projects, and I'll make a list below so that you can find out that information. This is episode 21, and as I have been having a few challenges with my projects lately, I will be talking about those roadblocks with each one as I go through them today. But let's start with what I'm wearing. Today, I am wearing the Vinter Feld sweater by Skeindeer Knits. I made this 3 or 4 years ago. I used Holst supersoft for this project, and I'm actually trying it out next to skin today. That's something I do not normally do up here. I'm quite far north, and we have a very long winter and a very cold winter. I usually wear a long-sleeved t-shirt underneath that's also merino wool, but I was trying other things on, so I only have a camisole on underneath, and I thought, you know, I'm going to give it a try and see how it feels. And it feels just fine, and I have extremely sensitive skin, although I'm not allergic to wool, but this seems to be working for me, and I kind of like how light it feels. This sweater is a fingering weight sweater, and it is very lightweight, and you can, even for packing, if you're going on a trip, it would pack up really, really small. So one of the advantages there of using the fingering weight yarns. So my first project, which I should be calling a finished project at this point, is my rocket tee. It's sitting behind me right here. I haven't woven the ends in because, to be honest with you, it kind of went in the timeout corner. I got pretty frustrated with it this past week. I spent 3 evenings doing the I-cord bind off at the bottom. So this is a top-down sweater, a V-neck top-down sweater, and it's got this beautiful I-cord on the raglan, which I love. Eyelets, not I-cord, eyelets on the raglan, and it has I-cord on the cuffs and on the V-neck. I did a modification in adding length to the sleeves because the pattern in its original design basically kind of finishes off right here where you pick up under the sleeve and then you bind off and do the I-cord, but I wanted something with a little bit more of a sleeve on it. So I did that, and I knit and I knit and I knit all of my stripes, and I did the I-cord at the bottom, which took me a very long time, and then I tried it on. And I have been trying this on at each stage to make sure that it fit. I wanted to get a length that I really liked, and I even soaked it just to make sure it wasn't going to stretch too much for me. The problem is the I-cord at the bottom. What is happening is that it's the way it's weighted, and I have to admit it is curling up a little bit at the bottom, even though I blocked it. It doesn't have the short circumference like the sleeves do to stop that flip up, but the way it's weighting the bottom of the sweater, I'm not getting the really nice drape that I like. So I'm a little bit discouraged with that. The yarn is beautiful. There's a lot of silk in this yarn, and I haven't given up on it yet because my plan is to rip out the I-cord and possibly, I'm not sure how far back I'm going to go. I might go back to this point right here and do a folded hem. I have a sweater that has a folded hem. It's my Simple Stripes by Suvi Knits, and it's a fantastic sweater. I love it. I did the fingering weight version, but there is a 𝐑𝐂 version for those of you who would prefer a 𝐑𝐂 sweater, and I love it. I did it in stripes. It's one of my favorites, and in fact, I'm wearing it so much that it's starting to get a little bit worn. So I wear it more on the weekends now than I do to work. But that's my plan. I didn't even sew in the ends. When I saw that that I-cord at the bottom was not going to be a happy thing, I just had to put it away and give it a little mini break before I tackled the fix. So I do have a plan for that. That should be done by my next podcast, so stay tuned. We'll see if I can solve that conundrum. My next project that I have been working on is hanging right here. This is my Sorrel sweater, and I started this not too long ago. I am doing a fade, and the pattern does include a fade. That is how the pattern is written, and they give you a formula to how you can fade in your next color and then fade it out, and that's fantastic, very helpful. With the fade that I did here, with my fade, I started doing it about right here, and I brought it in slowly, and I think it's faded quite well. I'm really happy with that. It fits really well when I put it on, and this is a top-down sweater. Now, one thing that scared me a little bit about this project was that when I had finished the yoke before I was about to split for the sleeves, I found when I took out my measuring tape that the yoke was a lot longer than it should be, and I had a little bit of a panicky moment. I thought in my head, well, I could always do a double ribbing for the neckband, turn it down and sew it down. That would eliminate some of the length. But when I put it on, it stretched right out, and it was the perfect size. So really trying these garments on as you knit is super, super important to get the big picture. If I hadn't have done that, I might have ripped back, and I didn't need to. So it's a top down. These stitches right here, these are super fun. These are a type of dip stitch where you are catching your yarn a few rows down. The tricky thing about that was to make sure that they were left loose enough so that they weren't going to be pulling the yoke up. So that took a little bit of getting used to, but once I got the hang of it, it went really, really well, and I love it. So everybody's probably thinking, what's the problem? Well, the problem is kind of down here. So I love how these two colors melded together, and just to refresh, I'm holding two yarns together. I'm holding this Holst hand-dyed sock yarn. So that's from Holst Garn in, let me think, is it Denmark? I think it's Denmark. So that is a speckly pink. It's got a bit of yellow, a bit of orange in it. And I'm putting this with, sorry about the crinkling. I am putting this with what they call their Titicaca base, which is alpaca. So that was my first pairing, and that was beautiful and incredibly soft. This yarn together is such a great combination. And then I brought in this fabulous bubblegum kind of pink, and here's where the problem happened. This next color, which on my camera looks neon pink, but it's actually a dark purple called Gladiola, I believe. Yeah, Gladiola. So when I brought that last color in, let me see if I can show you what happened here. So it kind of looks like, let me show you the knitted side. It's just so different. The color is so different that it almost looks like I'm getting kind of like there we go. I'm getting like a stripe, And I'm not happy with that. That's not a fade. And when I started doing that and I saw what was happening, I thought there's no way I'm going to be happy with that, because the fade is just so pretty here. And then to all of a sudden be getting these lines of this dark purple, which I like the color, but not with the rest of this sweater. So I really had been trying to shop from stash. That was my goal this year, was really just shop from stash. However, I can't leave this beautiful sweater the way it is, and I'm not continuing with that color. So I went on Holst's site and I took a look at the other Titicaca colors that they had. And I found one in particular that I think will be the best next color, but I did actually get two that as possibilities, because it's really hard when you shop online to know whether or not something's going to work. So I know I'll use them. I love pink. I probably will end up making a striped sweater at some point using that paired with something. So I did have to put an order in, and this is a little bit on hold for now. I certainly can do the sleeves down to this point while I'm waiting, and that's my plan. I've got my needles all ready to do that. And that yarn should probably be here by the end of this coming week, because I ordered it about a week ago. So that one's a little bit on hold, apart from being able to go ahead with the sleeves, which I'll talk about soon in my planning to make more things conversation. All right, so that was number 2. That one had a little bit of a challenge. Right, let me put this back up here. Everything is so empty and white, and I'm moving, so I'm retiring from my current job, and even the room is echoing a little bit. So I hope that that's not going to be a problem when you're listening to this episode. So the next project that I've been working on, and thankfully, I haven't had any knitting problems with this one. However, there was a bit of a problem with something I wasn't expecting. So the last time I podcasted on my Painted Pebbles shawl by the Forest City Knit Girls, I'll just show you what I've done so far in case you're new here. So I'm basically using their pattern as my formula for making this shawl. I'm using the increases and decreases on the borders, and I'm just doing garter stitch, and I am choosing what I'm doing as I go. And when I last podcasted, I believe I had just started into these 3 stripes, and I continued with 5 and then with 3 again, using a block of the speckly cream yarn in between. And now I think I'm going to kind of do the opposite thing, where I'm going to do a section of orange, and then I'll stripe more the white with the orange in between. I am getting to, oh, my balls rolled away to the other side of the room, so I won't grab those, but I am getting to the end of this yarn, and I am just going to keep going until I use every scrap of it up. But this is a fantastic shawl if you're like me and you like a shawl that's really long and you can just wrap it around and bundle up and stop the wind from blowing down your neck. I'm still wearing wool sweaters and shawls, although I have gone to a bit of a lighter coat. But this past week we had two snowstorms, small storms, but we're not really out of the woods here for a little while yet. So, and even when the snow is gone, we can have some pretty cold, windy days up here, being beside the ocean. So the wool sweaters really come in handy, and so do the shawls. Oh, the problem with this. Okay, let me bring that back for just 2 seconds. So I like to take my knitting wherever I go. If I think I might be sitting down and just having a chat with somebody or waiting, I take it with me. So I went to my daughter's and her partner's for supper when I was home in the March break, just trying to find the spot that was the problem. And my daughter has a new kitten. So while my yarn was on the floor, there was a bit of chewing that happened. So unfortunately, I'm gonna have some ends to sew in and hide on this project because the kitten got into more than one place. So a word to the wise, kittens and puppies, they're not really great around knitted projects. It's best to hide them and really watch them carefully. So anyway, that was the problem with that one. All right, socks. I've got some sock talk today. All right, so I've got 2 pairs of socks to show you. And the pattern that I'm using for these is the Crazy Sock Lady K, her Austin socks pattern. That's a free pattern on Ravelry. I'm not sure if it's a pattern for DK weight socks, but I've just been using her formula and choosing the number of stitches that I know is good for my feet while I've been making socks. So this is my first sock. I have shown it before. And besides doing the Kitchener toe, it is finished. I didn't do my toes last night because I was tired, and I find when it's dark, I don't do fiddly things very well. I need full light in order to do those things. So this sock, this beautiful colored sock, is a 56 stitch sock on 2.25 needles. I have done a slip stitch gusset heel, which I really like. It fits my foot super well. But this is what I did that was new. Kay of Noble Character Crafts. She is a YouTube channel and she's wonderful. No, sorry, it's Amy. Amy of Noble Character Crafts. She suggested on one of her episodes, or mentioned, that on the ball of her foot, she does the slip stitch pattern of what you would do on your slip stitch gusset. So when she's going around once, she'll do the slip one, knit one. The next row, she'll just do knit, and then she'll do the slip one, knit one on the ball of her foot. And she finds that her socks wear a lot there. For me, I have very bony feet, and sometimes they get kind of sore here. So I thought I would try to cushion that a little bit, and I gave it a try. However, there's a lot of howevers today. When I was doing this and I was knitting it away and trying it on, I do like to try my socks on as I'm knitting them to make sure that it's all coming together the way it should. And I know exactly where to start the toe, given that I've made socks for, I don't know, 20, 25 years now. What was happening was when I tried it on, this side was way longer than this side, given that I was doing something different. And I thought, oh, that's not good. Something's really not good here. So I wrote Amy, and Amy said, yeah, that happens. You just got to keep going, and it will sort itself out when the toe is finished and you try it on. It'll all sort itself out. I have to say, I wasn't sure because it was like a centimeter more on the top of the foot than on the bottom. And I didn't really want to knit something and then rip it all back. But I did do my toe, as you can see here. And you know what? Amy was right. It completely sorted itself out. When I tried it on, I didn't notice that that was a problem anymore at all. So hats off to her. It does work, and she was right. I am knitting these on Magic Loop, one 40-inch needle, in case you were wondering. I was watching Earth Tones Girl this past week, and I noticed that she was using 2 flexible cord needles. And I wrote her, and she said that they're not 16-inch, she uses 24-inch. And I thought that might be something that I'll give a try in the future. But I have one done of this. You'll see I don't have a pair done, but I have one done apart from the toe. And I'm not very good at doing the second one, but so this is the second one, but not of the pair. So this is West Yorkshire Spinners yarn, and I'm in love with this. It feels like wool. It does not feel like it has nylon in it, although it is 75-25. I think I'm going to love wearing these. My hands absolutely adored knitting them. But I've done something different with this pair. With this one, I have 64 stitches, but I am knitting on 2mm needles. So I'm getting a much tighter weave. And to be honest with you, I'm really liking it. I tried it on and I love the way it looks. I went up quite a few stitches in order to use the smaller needles, but I'm very, very happy with this. It feels fantastic. I also did the slip stitch on the ball of my foot, but I did something different with the toe. And I am ready for the Kitchener stitch there. So I used Kay's formula again for the pattern. She is the Crazy Sock Lady. She has a lot of beautiful patterns on Ravelry. She's really well known, kind of the sock guru, I think. But where I did this toe, I found it kind of pointy. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to try something different. I'm going to try to make this a little bit more rounded at the top. So what I did was I kept doing every other row decreasing until I got to 32 stitches. So that meant I had 16 on one side and 16 on the other. And then I started decreasing every row. And that gave it more of a round shape at the top. And I'm really liking that. I think that's going to be more of my go-to, is to get that rounded top for the toe, because it just seems to fit my foot better. Another little trick that I have here, when I've only done one, is I put some information in the sock of what I did, just in case I don't get back to it right away. I've got the name of the yarn, the stitches, the needles, and I've also written how I've decreased the toe. And I just tuck that into my sock so that I don't forget. You know, it's really easy to forget what you've done if you put it down for a little while. But I think this is going to be the one that I do next. So I'll do the second one of this, and then I'll go back to the other one to finish the pair. Excuse me. Unfortunately, it's allergy season for me, and even though I have taken some antihistamine, it still seems to be pretty bad. Okay, so here's something new that I did in the last month. I posted this on Instagram, so you may have already heard about this. So I went to my local yarn store and I signed myself up for a 2-hour brioche knitting class. This may not be the most beautiful knitting in the world, but to be honest with you, I am extremely proud of this because it wasn't easy. The two colors definitely made it easier to be a starting project, but brioche is tough. The lady that taught me, her name is Julie. She was a fantastic teacher, and it turned out I was the only one enrolled in the class, and Julie owns the store. And she didn't cancel on me. She just did the class with just me. And that really gave me the chance to talk to her and really understand what was going on. However, she doesn't speak a lot of English, so the course was in French. After I had worked all day long, it was a work weekday, and I went to the store, I think it was 4:30 after I worked until 6:30. So I was pretty exhausted by the time I was finished. But I do have some notes, and Julie did a great job, especially when she was trying to teach me how to read the row below to know what you do next. And even though I know over time I'm going to forget some of what she said, I think just knowing to look below and read the knitting instead of constantly looking at the pattern, that's going to make a big difference for me. I think that was a key to it clicking in my head. But I'm really glad I did the course in person. And I know there's lots of great tutorials that I can now go to with the experience that I've already had with this. But it was super fun. And I just sometimes really like the camaraderie of taking a class. It's just different from sitting in front of my computer screen trying to figure things out by myself. So that was a really fun little thing that I did in the last month since I last podcasted. All right, so I have never talked about books outside of pattern books on the podcast, but it does seem like that's a big thing these days, and I am a huge reader. In fact, I did apply for a job working in the rural branches of the Ottawa Public Library, and I mentioned that previously, and I did get called for an interview, but I did have to have that put on hold because I'm not moving until the end of June. I'm still teaching, and I have intentions of completing my year with my students. And I was very disappointed that I couldn't go to that interview, but I am really happy that they're keeping my file, and fingers crossed I will get called when I get back. I'm not looking for full-time work. I've been working full-time for an awfully long time. I'm looking for a part-time job where I can get out, I can be social and see people. I might look into working at a yarn store possibly, but we'll see. I'm not in a rush. I just want to take my time with that because retirement's a big step, and moving back will take its time for me to get settled in. So I might be able to podcast one more time before I move, but there might be a bit of a gap for those of you who watch regularly. And if you're wondering if I'm coming back, yes, I will. But just keep that in mind. I'm in the process of packing up and going somewhere else. So books. I have read a book in the past week called Unravelling by Peggy Oreinstein, or Oreinstein, not sure how she pronounces that. This is a nonfiction book, and I have really, really enjoyed it. I'm just reading my notes if you're wondering why I'm looking down. It is a book that is full of true facts, personal stories, and historical events revolving around shearing, wool. Fast fashion is something that she talks about as well. I really enjoyed that part. And, you know, there's been times where I've kind of smiled and thought about something personal as she has given some new information. One of the things she mentions were the women who knit furiously in World War I, making socks for the troops. That's something I already was aware of, but she added some interesting elements into that part of her book. And in the back of my head, as I was sitting on my couch with my feet up, I thought to myself, well, they should have had Croy sock yarn for that war, because even though Croy might not be my go-to favorite yarn, it is incredibly hard wearing. I have many socks made out of Croy. It's what I started knitting with in the very beginning when I started my sock journey. And I had a pair on when I was reading this story, and I think they're like 23 years old, and they just won't die on me. They show no signs of wearing. There might be a little bit of pilling that I could take care of, but they're just as good as they ever were. And I do find they get softer as I wear them more. So I think they should have had that one years back, because it really does the job. I have a podcaster to thank. Always Yarn First gave me a shout out about a month ago on her podcast, and I just wanted to let her know that I'm really grateful for that. Thank you so much. And I have a podcaster to recommend to you today. Her name is Karen, And I have been watching Karen for about 2 or 3 months now. The name of the podcast is the Karen Knits Podcast, and I will link that below. She has well over 200 episodes, and she is really striving to get to the 1,000 mark in her podcast. So I wanted to give her a shout out to help her out, but I also, sorry about that, I had to go and erase a few things. My phone seems to be really bogged down with the amount of things I've been storing in there. So I was talking about the Karen Knits podcast. I became super interested in watching her progress when I found out she was doing sock madness. And her latest video that she's posted shows that she is into round 5. The socks are really interesting and difficult, intricate. So go on over and check her out and see what she's up to. The last thing I want to talk about is a little bit of a plan for making more, let's call it that. I tend to dilly-dally with my knitting. I sort of float over to one thing and play with it a little bit, and then I try another thing and I knit a bit on that, but I don't really focus what I'm making. And I was watching Kay's recent video on the Crazy Sock Lady, and she is a prolific knitter. Not only is she prolific, but she gets a lot finished, and that's really a goal I have of moving forward with my knitting. And she kind of has a system where she wakes up at 5 a.m. apparently, which is not what I do. I'm usually up around 6:30, and she knits on a certain project that morning, and she aims for so many rows. And then if she has card knitting, she has a project that she'll knit on at that point. And then she has her evening knitting, and so on and so on. So in the last couple of days, I've really been taking more of a purposeful approach of getting things done. So on the weekend, when I woke up, I worked on my shawl. And my goal was to do 4 rows. And in fact, I think I've managed to do a lot more than that this weekend, which is great. In the afternoon on Saturday, which was yesterday, I said, you know what? I'm working on socks. In the evening, I'll work on sweaters. And I feel like that might help me get more finished. And it takes more of the emotional knitting out of the equation, if you want to call it that. So I'm trying to be more purposeful. We'll see how that goes. I will update you on my progress in my next podcast. Anyway, if you've made it to the end of the video, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate that. If you haven't already subscribed, please consider doing so. And if you would give me a thumbs up, that would be fantastic. Take care, everybody. I love the comments. It's really encouraging. And I really hope that you're enjoying all of your projects in your knitting. Bye-bye.